I sat alone on New Year's Eve, scrolling through Facebook when I saw photos of my entire family at a luxury ski resort in Aspen. My son Robert, grandchildren Emma and Tyler. Even my ex-husband Frank was there with his new wife. But most shocking, my daughter-in-law Jessica's entire family was present, including Jessica's elderly mother Dorothy. I remembered Jessica's words from 2 weeks ago. "There's not enough space for you, Ruby. It's for young people anyway." I set down my phone, a plan already forming. 2 weeks earlier, I had been sitting in my living room with Robert, sharing coffee and discussing our family's New Year's traditions. We'd been doing this every year since his father passed away 5 years ago. Just the two of us, remembering the good times and planning how to keep our family close. The December snow was falling gently outside my window in Burlington, Vermont, and I had just pulled out my photo album to show him pictures from when he and his sister were young. "Mom, you remember that year Emma tried to stay up until midnight but fell asleep in the mashed potatoes?" Robert was laughing, his eyes crinkling just like his father's used to. "She was so determined," I said, touching the photo gently, "just like you were at that age." Speaking of Emma and Tyler, what should we do special for them this year? That's when Jessica walked in from the kitchen, her heels clicking on my hardwood floor. She'd been on her phone the entire visit, barely acknowledging me when they arrived. At 38, my daughter-in-law had always been somewhat distant, but lately, she'd become downright cold. "Actually, Ruby, we need to discuss plans," Jessica announced, not even looking up from her phone. "I've organized a New Year's trip to Aspen. The whole family's going." My heart lifted. "Oh, how wonderful. I haven't been to Aspen since your father and I honeymooned there, Robert. I can help with the planning, and I'd be happy to contribute to the costs." "When do we leave?" Jessica finally looked up, her green eyes sharp and dismissive. "There's not enough space for you, Ruby. The resort is fully booked, and we only have room for immediate family." I felt the words like a physical blow. But I am immediate family. I'm Robert's mother, the children's grandmother. "You know what I mean," Jessica said, waving her manicured hand dismissively. "It's mostly skiing and activities for young people. You'd be uncomfortable. All that altitude and physical activity at your age?" "I'm 68, not 98, I said quietly. "I walk 3 miles every day and just completed a half marathon for charity last month." Robert shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. His silence hurt more than Jessica's words. "It's already decided," Jessica continued. "My mother will be there to help with the kids, and we've arranged everything. You understand, don't you? Maybe we can do something when we get back." I noticed her texting rapidly as she spoke, her fingers flying across the screen. The recipient's name flashed briefly. Dorothy. Her mother. The preview of the message was visible for just a second. "Almost done here." "Of course," I managed to say, my voice steady, despite the pain spreading through my chest. "I understand perfectly," Jessica smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I knew you would. You're always so reasonable, Ruby." That's what I tell everyone. They left shortly after, Robert giving me a quick, awkward hug at the door. As their car pulled away, I stood at my kitchen window, watching the taillights disappear into the snowy evening. That's when I heard it, carried on the wind, as Jessica's window rolled down to toss something out. Her voice on the phone, "Problem solved. She bought it." Can you believe how easy that was? I walked slowly to my study, pulled out a notebook, and began writing down everything that had just happened. Something told me I would need this documentation. As I wrote, memories started flooding back, little incidents I'd dismissed or explained away. Jessica, arriving late to my birthday dinner and leaving early. The Mother's Day, when she scheduled a spa day for herself and Dorothy, telling Robert said I didn't want to celebrate. The Christmas when my presents to the grandchildren mysteriously disappeared, and Jessica said they must have gotten lost in the mail. I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I searched through social media. Really searched. What I found made my hands shake. There it was. A private group called Real Family, only created by Jessica 2 years ago. The member list was visible, even though the posts weren't. Robert, Emma, Tyler, Dorothy, Jessica's sisters Patricia and Catherine, their husbands, even Frank and his new wife Margaret. Everyone was there, except me. 2 years. For 2 years, they'd been having conversations, sharing photos, making plans, all in a space deliberately created to exclude me. I thought about all the times I'd felt out of the loop, all the moments when everyone seemed to know something I didn't. Now it made sense. I picked up my phone to call Robert, then set it down. No, not yet. If Jessica had worked this hard to push me out, there was more to this than just personal dislike. I needed to understand what was really happening before I acted. New Year's Eve arrived with a bitter cold that seemed to match my mood. I'd spent the day alone, declining invitations from friends because I'd foolishly kept the day free, assuming I'd be with family. Around 8 in the evening, I opened Facebook to distract myself from the quiet house. That's when I saw them. The photos were everywhere. Jessica had posted dozens, tagged everyone, made them all public. Best family trip ever, she'd written. So blessed to have everyone together. The emphasis on everyone felt deliberately cruel. I studied each photo carefully, my investigator instincts from my 30 years as a paralegal kicking in. There was Robert, laughing by a massive stone fireplace. Emma and Tyler in matching ski suits I'd never seen before. Frank raising a champagne glass with Margaret. Dorothy, Jessica's 72-year-old mother, on skis. The woman who claimed I would find the altitude and activities too challenging had brought her mother, who was 4 years older than me and had hip replacement surgery just last year. But it was the location that made my breath catch. I recognized that fireplace. Those massive windows overlooking the mountains. The distinctive carved wooden bears in the lobby. This was Mountain View Lodge, the exact place where my late husband Daniel and I had spent our honeymoon 42 years ago. The place where Robert was conceived. The place I'd told Jessica about many times, sharing my precious memories. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Harold Patterson's number was still there. Harold had owned Mountain View Lodge for 30 years, and we'd stayed in touch after Daniel and I started our charitable foundation. Harold was one of our first major donors. Harold, I said when he answered on the second ring. It's Ruby Henderson. Ruby! What a pleasure to hear from you on New Year's Eve. How are you, my dear? I've been better, Harold. I need to ask you something. Did Jessica Morrison book a group at your lodge for this week? There was a pause. How did you know? Yes. She booked the entire West Wing. Said it was for her company retreat. But Ruby, I've been wanting to call you. Something felt off about the whole thing. What do you mean? Well, first she specifically asked me not to accept any reservations from anyone named Ruby Henderson. Said there was a stalker using that name, who'd been harassing her family. I knew that couldn't be you. But I played along because I sensed something was wrong. My hand tightened on the phone. What else, Harold? She tried to book the honeymoon cabin, your special suite. I told her it was unavailable, but she pushed hard, offered triple the rate. I refused and held it back. Ruby, she knew exactly which suite it was, described it perfectly. She also charged everything to a credit card in Robert's name. But when I called to verify the large amount, $38,000, she answered his phone and approved it herself. $38,000. My son didn't have that kind of money to throw around. His construction business was doing well, but not that well. Harold, I need a favor, I said, my mind racing. Is the honeymoon cabin really available? For you? Always. When would you like it? Tonight? I can be there by dawn. Ruby, what's going on? I'm not entirely sure yet, but I intend to find out. After hanging up with Harold, I made another call, this one to my neighbor Sarah. She'd been collecting my mail while I was supposedly going to be away, back when I thought I'd be in Aspen with my family. Sarah, Have you noticed anything unusual about my mail? Actually, yes. That woman came by 3 times this week. Jessica? She said you'd asked her to check for important documents. I never asked her to do that. Oh dear. She took several envelopes. Said they were tax documents you needed. I thanked Sarah and hung up. Then went to my bedroom closet. Behind my summer clothes was a small safe where I kept important documents and some cash for emergencies. This certainly qualified. I packed quickly but carefully, including my laptop, the notebook where I'd been documenting things, and a small digital recorder Daniel had given me years ago for my work. As I loaded my car, I made one more call. This one to my accountant, Barbara Williams. Barbara, I know it's late, but I need you to check something. Can you see if there have been any unusual attempts to access my investment accounts? I heard typing in the background. Barbara worked from home and was always available for her longtime clients. Actually, Ruby, yes. There have been 4 attempts in the last month to reset your password. All unsuccessful. But they had partial information. They knew your social security number and Daniel's death date but got the security questions wrong. Change everything. I said. New passwords? New security questions? Everything. And flag the accounts for any suspicious activity. Ruby? Should I be worried? Just cautious. I'll explain everything when I get back. The drive to Aspen took 11 hours through the night. I stopped only for gas and coffee, using the time to think and plan. By the time I saw the mountains appearing in the dawn light, I had a clear idea of what I needed to do. But first, I had another stop to make. Robert's business, Morrison Construction, used Mountain First Bank for all its accounts. When Daniel helped Robert start the company 10 years ago, Head insisted I be added as a co-signer, just in case something happened. Robert had never removed me, probably forgot I was even on there. The bank opened at 9, and I was their first customer. Mrs. Henderson. The manager, James, greeted me warmly. What brings you in on New Year's Day? I need to review some accounts, James. There might be some discrepancies I need to track down. What I found made my stomach turn. Jessica had been slowly moving money from the business account to a personal account Shed opened in both her and Robert's names. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there, but in the last 6 months, it had escalated to thousands. Shed also been writing checks to her family members and marking them as business expenses. Dorothy had received $15,000 listed as consulting fees. I printed everything, thanked James, and asked him to put a temporary freeze on any large withdrawals without dual authorization. He agreed, concerned by what Wed found. My next stop was the resort. I parked in the back and entered through the employee entrance, where Harold was waiting for me. Ruby, you look exhausted. I drove through the night. Harold, I need information. Who else is here with Jessica's group? He pulled out the registration list. My heart sank as I read name after name. Not just family, but Jessica's personal trainer, Marcus Webb, listed as a business consultant. Her cousins, their children, even her hairdresser was here as a family friend. Harold, do you have anyone on staff who might have overheard anything useful? Actually, yes. Margaret, one of our housekeepers, mentioned something strange. She said Mrs. Morrison has been telling people that you have early-stage dementia. She even showed some guests what looked like medical documents. I need to speak with Margaret. Margaret, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair, was horrified when she learned the truth. Oh, Mrs. Henderson, I knew something wasn't right. That woman, she's been saying terrible things. She told your grandchildren that you didn't want to see them anymore, that you were becoming mean in your old age. The poor children were so confused and sad. Did you hear anything else? Margaret looked around nervously, then leaned closer. She's been meeting with that trainer, Marcus, at odd hours. They were in the hot tub together at 2 a.m. last night. Your son was passed out in his room. She's been putting something in his drinks. I'm sure of it. He can barely keep his eyes open past 9. I thanked Margaret and gave her my phone number in case she noticed anything else. Then I went to my suite, the honeymoon cabin, where Daniel and I had been so happy all those years ago. I sat on the bed, where we'd planned our future, where we'd dreamed of children and grandchildren, of growing old together, surrounded by family. Had been gone 5 years now, taken by a sudden heart attack that left me a widow at 63. If he could see what was happening to our family, it would break his heart all over again. But I could almost hear his voice in my mind. Ruby, my love, you were always the fighter. Don't let anyone push you around. I wouldn't. Not anymore. The morning of January 1st arrived, crisp and bright, the mountain air sharp enough to cut through my exhaustion. I'd managed 3 hours of sleep in the honeymoon cabin, my mind too busy processing everything to rest properly. But I needed to be sharp for what came next. I started with a visit to the one person I knew could help me understand the full scope of what Jessica was doing. Thomas Mitchell was a private investigator who'd worked with my law firm for 20 years before retiring to Aspen. I'd called him at 6 that morning, and despite the early hour and the holiday, had agreed to meet me at a small coffee shop in town. Ruby Henderson, Thomas said, standing as I approached his table. When you said you needed help, I came running. You helped me save my house during my divorce 15 years ago. What's going on? I laid out everything I'd discovered so far. Thomas listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes in a small pad. When I finished, he whistled low. This is elaborate, he said. This isn't just personal animosity. This is a long-term plan. Give me 4 hours, and I'll have more information for you. While Thomas worked his magic, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I returned to the resort and positioned myself in the lobby with a newspaper. Just another guest enjoying the morning. From there, I could see everyone coming and going. At 10:30, Jessica emerged from the elevator with Marcus, her supposed business consultant. They stood too close, his hand on the small of her back, in a way that was decidedly unprofessional. She was giggling like a schoolgirl, not the composed 38-year-old who controlled my son's life. They walked past me without a glance, her voice carrying. Robert's completely out of it again, she was saying. Those anxiety meds work better than I expected. Hell, sign anything I put in front of him now. And the old lady? Marcus asked. Sitting at home alone, probably crying into her tea. After tonight? She won't be a problem anymore. Mom's got the assisted living place all picked out. We just need Robert to sign the papers, and we can have her declared incompetent. They moved out of earshot, but I'd heard enough. I followed at a distance, watching them enter the resort's business center. Through the glass door, I could see Jessica pulling out a folder of documents. My phone buzzed. It was Thomas. Ruby, can you meet me in the parking lot? You need to see this. In his car, Thomas showed me his laptop screen. Had managed to access some interesting information in just a few hours. Jessica Morrison. Maiden name Jessica Coleman. She's been married twice before. Both ex-husbands filed for divorce, citing financial abuse. The first one, David, owns a restaurant in Denver. I called him. He said she nearly bankrupted him, slowly drained his accounts while convincing him his family was toxic. Sound familiar? I nodded, feeling sick. The second husband, Peter, is in therapy to this day. She isolated him from his elderly parents, convinced him they were developing dementia, and tried to get power of attorney over them. They were worth about $3 million. When they fought back, she divorced him and took half of everything he'd built. This is her pattern, I said. It gets worse. Her mother, Dorothy Coleman, has been sued twice for elder fraud. Both cases were settled out of court. They're a team, Ruby. They've done this before. What about Marcus? Marcus Webb is not a personal trainer. Has never been certified. Has actually Dorothy's godson. This is a family operation. I thought about my sweet Robert, my grandchildren, how they were being poisoned against me. What about the medical documents saying I have dementia? Thomas pulled up another screen. Completely fabricated. The doctor's name on them? Dr. Harrison, Died 3 years ago. She's counting on nobody checking. Thomas. Jessica mentioned something about tonight. Something about assisted living papers. Then we need to move fast. But Ruby, we need law enforcement involved. This is criminal. Not yet, I said. If we move too soon, she'll find a way to spin this. She's gotten Robert completely under her control. We need irrefutable evidence. And we need Robert to see it for himself. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. I called my lawyer, William Barnes, and explained the situation. He was appalled and immediately began preparing documents to protect my assets and challenge any power of attorney claims. I also called my doctor, who sent over my recent medical records showing I was in perfect mental health, including the cognitive test ID taken just 2 months ago as part of my regular checkup. But the most important call was to Frank, my ex-husband. We'd divorced 20 years ago, but it was amicable. We'd simply grown apart, wanted different things. Had remarried a lovely woman named Margaret, and we'd all remained friendly for the sake of the children. Frank, it's Ruby. I need your help. Ruby? Aren't you in Aspen with everyone? That's just it, Frank. I'm not with everyone. I'm here, but they don't know it. I explained everything. Frank's silence grew heavier with each revelation. That witch! He finally exploded. I knew something was off. She kept insisting you didn't want to come. But that made no sense. You live for those grandkids. Frank, I need you to do something for me. At dinner tonight, I need you to watch Robert carefully. Margaret mentioned Jessica might be drugging him. Can you try to intercept his drinks? Consider it done. Ruby? I'm so sorry. I should have questioned this more. We all should have. But Frank, there's something else. Tonight at dinner, Jessica is planning something big. I'm going to be there. What? Ruby, that could be dangerous. I'll have backup. Just be ready to support me when the time comes. As the sun began to set over the mountains, I made my final preparations. I had Thomas stationed in the lobby with 2 off-duty police officers he knew. William was on standby with legal documents. Barbara had frozen all my accounts and flagged them for suspicious activity. Harold had given his security team a heads up that there might be a disturbance. I also had one more ace up my sleeve, that little digital recorder Daniel had given me. It'd been recording everything all day. Colorado is a one-party consent state for recordings, meaning as long as I was part of the conversation or in public spaces, the recordings were legal. At 6:30, I returned to my suite to change. I chose my outfit carefully. The elegant black dress Daniel had bought me for our 40th anniversary. My mother's pearl necklace. The watch Robert had given me for my 65th birthday. I wanted to look like exactly what I was. A dignified woman who had been underestimated for the last time. As I applied my lipstick, I thought about Jessica's words from earlier. The old lady sitting at home alone, probably crying into her tea. Wrong on all counts, Jessica, I said to my reflection. I'm not at home, I'm not crying, and I'm definitely not just any old lady. I'm Ruby Henderson, and you're about to learn what that means. At 7 in the evening, I met Thomas in a small conference room Harold had provided for us. Had been busy all afternoon, and the table was covered with documents, photographs, and printouts. 2 off-duty police officers, Joseph and Diana, were reviewing the evidence. Ruby, this is bigger than we thought, Thomas said, pulling up something on his laptop. I've been tracking their digital footprint. Jessica and Dorothy have been planning this for 5 years, since right after Robert married her. 5 years. I couldn't hide my shock. Look at this. He showed me an email exchange between Jessica and Dorothy from 4 years ago. They specifically targeted Robert because of your late husband's life insurance and your investment portfolio. They knew exactly how much you were worth. I read the emails, my hands trembling with anger rather than fear. They'd discussed me like I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. Dorothy had written, "The old woman has 2 million at least. Once she's in a home, we can get Robert, power of attorney. Hess, weak enough." They called my son weak, I said quietly. There's more. Diana, one of the officers, interjected. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes. This pattern of elder abuse and financial fraud? We've been tracking similar cases across 3 states. The Coleman family is already on our radar, Joseph added. We've been trying to build a case for 2 years, but victims usually don't come forward until it's too late. You're giving us the break we needed. Thomas pulled out another file. Here is what Jessica plans for tonight. Margaret, the housekeeper, has been incredible. She managed to photograph the documents Jessica has been preparing. I looked at the papers. Power of attorney forms, already partially filled out. Admission papers for Silver Pines Assisted Living, a facility known for housing people with severe dementia. Bank transfer authorizations moving my accounts to Jessica's control. And, most chilling, a document stating I was voluntarily signing over custody rights of my grandchildren due to my deteriorating mental condition. She's planning to take everything, I said. Not just my money, but my family. Not if we can help it. William Barnes, my lawyer, said as he entered the room. Head, driven up from Denver with a briefcase full of legal ammunition. I've prepared several documents. First, a cease and desist order against Jessica accessing any of your accounts or property. Second, a formal complaint with the Financial Crimes Division. Third, and this is important, papers to immediately revoke any power of attorney she might trick Robert into signing. What about Robert? I asked. Has been drugged. Has not thinking clearly. That's where this comes in. Barbara Williams, my accountant, said, entering behind William. Shed also made the drive. I've documented every fraudulent transaction from the business accounts. But more importantly, I found something Jessica didn't know about. Daniel set up a trust that specifically protects family assets from spousal fraud. Jessica can't touch it, no matter what papers she gets signed. I felt a moment of deep gratitude for my late husband's foresight. Even gone? He was still protecting our family. Now, Thomas said, let's talk about your entrance tonight. Harold has given us the layout of the private dining room. There's a service entrance that leads directly to the sound system control panel. I've already set it up so you can play your recordings through the speakers. The recordings are our smoking gun, William confirmed. Jessica confessing to drugging Robert, discussing the fraud, the affair with Marcus, everything. It's all admissible in court. Harold knocked and entered, looking concerned. Ruby, I just saw your family going into the private dining room. Jessica is already standing at the podium, preparing to speak. Your son looks barely conscious. Then it's time, I said, standing up. Everyone knows their role. Thomas nodded. Joseph and Diana will be in the dining room as guests. I'll be by the service entrance with the recordings ready. William and Barbara will be in the lobby with the legal documents. And I've stationed security at all exits, Harold added. Nobody leaves until this is resolved. I straightened my dress and checked my appearance in the mirror. I looked like what I was. A woman who had lived through loss, raised children, built a life, and wasn't about to let anyone take that away. Oh, Ruby, Barbara said suddenly. I almost forgot. She handed me a small thumb drive. Every email, every transaction, every document proving the fraud. It's all here. Backed up in 3 locations. I tucked it into my purse. Thank you, all of you. As we walked toward the dining room, I thought about Emma and Tyler, my precious grandchildren. How confused they must be, being told their grandmother didn't love them anymore. I thought about Robert, my gentle son who only wanted to make everyone happy, now being controlled through medication and manipulation. I thought about the life Daniel and I had built, the values Wed instilled in our children, the love Wed cultivated over decades. Jessica had tried to destroy all of that. But Shed made one crucial mistake. Shed underestimated me. The private dining room was glowing with candlelight. When I paused outside the service entrance, through the crack in the door, I could hear Jessica's voice, clear and confident. Before we celebrate the new year properly, she was saying, we need to address the family's future. As you all know, we've been dealing with a difficult situation regarding Robert's mother. I heard murmurs from the assembled group. There had to be 30 people in there. Her mental decline has been rapid, Jessica continued, her voice dripping with false concern. Dorothy and I have found a wonderful facility where she'll receive the care she needs. Robert, sweetheart, I have the papers here for you to sign. Through the crack, I could see Robert at the table, his eyes unfocused, reaching for the pen Jessica was holding out. Emma and Tyler sat beside him, looking confused and sad. Frank was half standing from his chair, clearly wanting to intervene but unsure how. This was it. The moment everything would change. I thought of Daniel one more time, could almost hear his voice. Give them hell, Ruby. I pushed open the service entrance door and walked into the dining room just as Robert's pen touched the paper. I wouldn't sign that if I were you, son. The room froze. Jessica's face went from confident to shocked to furious in the span of 3 seconds. Robert's pen fell from his fingers. Emma and Tyler jumped up from their chairs. Grandma, Tyler shouted, starting to run toward me. But Jessica grabbed his arm. Sit down, she hissed. Then, louder, Ruby, you shouldn't be here. You're confused. Someone call security. No need, I said calmly, walking further into the room. Harold already knows I'm here. In fact, I've been here since yesterday. I own 40% of this resort, did you know that? Daniel and I invested 20 years ago. Jessica's face was turning red. You need to leave. This is a private family gathering. Exactly, I said. A family gathering. And last I checked, I'm Robert's mother, Emma, and Tyler's grandmother. That makes me family. You're not well. Dorothy stood up, trying to take control. Jessica has documents from your doctor. You mean these? I pulled out my phone and projected an image onto the wall, a feature Harold had helpfully enabled for presentations. These forged documents using a dead doctor's name? Or did you mean these? I swiped to show my actual medical records. My real medical evaluation from 2 months ago showing perfect cognitive function. The room erupted in whispers. Frank stood fully now, moving closer to Robert protectively. This is ridiculous, Jessica said, but her voice was shaking. Robert, we're leaving. Sit down, Jessica. My voice carried the authority of 30 years in law offices. We're just getting started. Jessica remained standing, her face flushed with anger, and something else. Fear. She hadn't expected me to be here, hadn't expected me to fight back. For 5 years, she'd been systematically dismantling my life, and I'd let her think she was succeeding. How dare you crash our family celebration? She said, trying to regain control. This is harassment. I'm calling the police. Please do, I said calmly. In fact, Officers Joseph and Diana are already here. I nodded toward the 2 people in the corner who stood up, revealing their badges. They've been very interested in your activities, Jessica. Yours and your mother's. Dorothy's face went pale. She started edging toward the door, but Harold's security stepped into view, blocking the exit. Now then, I continued, walking to the sound system panel that Thomas had prepared. Since everyone's here, I thought we should all listen to something together. Mom, what's going on? Robert asked, his voice slurred but confused. Frank had moved to sit beside him, steadying him. You're about to find out, sweetheart, I said, then pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the room from our conversation 2 weeks ago. There's not enough space for you, Ruby. It's for young people anyway. Then her phone call afterward. Problem solved. She bought it. Can you believe how easy that was? The room was dead silent except for the recordings. Everyone listened as Jessica discussed putting me in a home, accessing my accounts, keeping me away from my grandchildren. Then came the most damaging part. Her conversation with Marcus from this morning. Robert's completely out of it again. Those anxiety meds work better than I expected. Hell, sign anything I put in front of him now. And the old lady, sitting at home alone, probably crying into her tea. After tonight, she won't be a problem anymore. I paused the recording. Robert was staring at Jessica, his confusion turning to horror. "You've been drugging me." His voice was stronger now, anger cutting through the medication fog. "It's not what it sounds like," Jessica said desperately. "Ruby obviously doctored these recordings. She's trying to turn you against me, because she's jealous of our happiness." "Then explain this," I said, projecting bank statements onto the wall. $38,000 charged to Robert's business credit card for this trip. Money transferred from his business accounts to your personal account. Checks written to your mother for consulting fees when she's never worked a day for the company. The numbers were clear, undeniable. I watched Robert's face change as he processed what he was seeing. "And this," I continued, showing the emails Thomas had found. 5 years of planning between you and your mother. You targeted my son specifically for our family money." Dorothy suddenly spoke up. "You can't prove any of this. Those emails could be fake." "Really, Dorothy?" Thomas stepped into the room, laptop in hand. "Because the FBI's cybercrime unit has already verified their authenticity. You should have used better encryption." Emma, my precious granddaughter, stood up. Her 13-year-old voice shook but carried clearly. "Mom, you told us Grandma didn't want to see us anymore. You showed us videos where she said mean things about us." "Those videos were edited, sweetheart," I said gently. "I have the originals right here." I played one of the real videos. Me talking about how proud I was of Emma's piano recital, how Tyler's soccer game had been the highlight of my week. The children started crying. "You lied to us." Tyler, only 11, looked at his mother with devastation. "You said Grandma was sick and mean now. You said she didn't love us." "I was protecting you," Jessica said weakly. "From what?" Frank interjected, his voice sharp. "From a grandmother who adores them? Who's never missed a single birthday, recital, or game, until you started keeping her away." Margaret, Frank's wife, added, "I thought something was wrong. Ruby would never voluntarily miss Christmas with the children." "Speaking of protection," I said, "let's talk about Marcus." Marcus, who'd been trying to blend into the background, suddenly looked panicked. "Your personal trainer, who's actually Dorothy's godson." I projected his real identity documents. "Who's never been certified as a trainer? Who's been having an affair with you for 2 years? Robert stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "An affair." "Robert, baby, it's not," Jessica started. "Not what?" I played another recording, this one from Margaret, the housekeeper, who documented Jessica and Marcus in the hot tub at 2 a.m. The room erupted. Robert's business partners, who'd been invited as family friends, were looking at Jessica with disgust. Her own cousins were backing away from her. Patricia, Jessica's sister, spoke up. "Jess, tell me you didn't do this. Tell me this is all a misunderstanding." But Jessica had nowhere to run. The evidence was overwhelming. In desperation, she tried one more tactic. "Fine," she screamed. "Yes, I was trying to protect the family from her. She's controlling, manipulative." She turned Daniel against his own brother, kept Robert under her thumb for years. "I was trying to free us all." "Daniel's brother was a drug addict who stole from us repeatedly," Frank said firmly. "Ruby tried to help him for years, until he threatened the children. And Robert was never under anyone's thumb. You're projecting your own behavior onto others." Officer Diana stepped forward. "Jessica Morrison, Dorothy Coleman, and Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, and conspiracy." That's when Jessica completely lost it. The scream that came out of her was primal, full of rage and defeat. She lunged toward me, but Joseph intercepted her, quickly putting her in handcuffs. "You ruined everything," she screamed at me. "Everything. That money should be mine. I earned it putting up with your pathetic son for 5 years. Robert flinched as if he'd been slapped. The mask had finally fallen completely, and everyone could see Jessica for who she really was. Dorothy tried to make a run for it but was caught by security. Marcus didn't even try to resist, just hung his head as he was cuffed. As they were being let out, Jessica turned one more time. You'll regret this, Ruby. You'll make sure you regret this. The only thing I regret, I said clearly, is not doing this sooner. After the police took Jessica, Dorothy, and Marcus away, the dining room fell into stunned silence. Robert sank back into his chair, his head in his hands. Emma and Tyler ran to me, throwing their arms around me as they sobbed. "Grandma, we're so sorry," Emma cried. "We believed her. We thought you didn't want us anymore." "Shh, sweetheart," I said, holding them tight. "You have nothing to apologize for. You were being lied to by someone you trusted. That's not your fault." Harold cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should move to a more comfortable space. The lounge is available, and I think everyone could use a drink. Or coffee," he added, looking at Robert, who was still clearly affected by whatever Jessica had been giving him. As we moved to the lounge, Robert came up beside me, unsteady on his feet. Frank was supporting him on the other side. "Mom!" Robert's voice broke. "How long has she been drugging me?" "Well, need to get you to a doctor to be sure," I said gently. "But based on what she said, probably months. That's why you've been feeling so anxious and foggy." In the lounge, William Barnes, my lawyer, laid out more documents on the coffee table. "Robert, I need you to understand the full scope of what your wife has done. She's stolen approximately $200,000 from your business accounts over the past 3 years." Robert's face went white. 200,000? "But that's everything Yves saved. We can recover most of it." "Barbara," my accountant, assured him. "Now that we have proof of fraud, the banks will reverse many of the transactions. Insurance will cover some losses. You won't lose your business, but I might have," Robert said, the reality sinking in. "If Mom hadn't caught this, you'd have lost everything," Frank said bluntly. "Your business, your kids, your mother, everything." Harold approached with a box I recognized. It was mahogany with silver corners, something Daniel had loved. "Ruby," Harold said softly. "Your husband left this in our safe 20 years ago, with specific instructions. He said to give it to you when she needs it most. I think that time is now." With shaking hands, I opened the box. Inside were letters, one addressed to each family member, and a letter to me on top. I recognized Daniel's handwriting immediately. "My dearest Ruby," I read aloud, my voice trembling. "If you're reading this, then you're facing something difficult without me. But remember, my love, you were always the strong one. You were the one who held our family together, who fought for what was right, who never backed down from protecting those you love. Trust your instincts. They've never been wrong." I had to stop, tears streaming down my face. Robert took my hand. "There's more," Harold said gently. "Daniel also left this." He handed me a folder. Inside were documents for trust funds Daniel had set up for Emma and Tyler before he died. Funds Jessica had been desperately trying to access. "He protected them," I whispered. "Even from beyond. He protected them." "There's something else," Thomas said, entering the lounge with his laptop. "I've been going through Jessica and Dorothy's communications. This goes deeper than just your family." He connected his laptop to the large screen on the wall. "They've done this before. 3 other families in different states. Same pattern. Jessica marries a man with elderly parents, isolates them, convinces the husband the parent is developing dementia, takes control of the finances. The other victims, Diana, one of the officers, said as she returned from processing Jessica. 2 are in assisted living facilities they don't need to be in. 1 passed away last year, supposedly from dementia, but the family always questioned it. We can help them, I said immediately. We have to help them. We will, Diana assured me. With your evidence, we can reopen those cases. Marcus, who had been brought back in to give a statement, suddenly spoke up. I'll testify. I'll tell you everything. Jessica and Dorothy, they made me do it. They said if I didn't help, they'd ruin me. You had an affair with my wife, Robert said coldly. She pursued me, Marcus said desperately. She said it was part of the plan, that she needed an exit strategy if things went wrong. I'm not proud of it, but they threatened to frame me for theft if I didn't go along. Over the next hour, the full truth emerged. Marcus revealed everything. How Dorothy had trained Jessica since she was young to run these schemes. How they'd researched our family for months before Jessica ever accidentally met Robert at that coffee shop 6 years ago. She knew everything, Marcus said. Your favorite places, your mother's routines, your father's death, the life insurance. She said it was the perfect mark because Ruby was alone and Robert was vulnerable from his recent breakup. My poor son looked devastated. Every memory of his marriage was now tainted with the knowledge that it had all been a lie. Catherine, Jessica's sister, spoke up. I suspected something. Jessica was never interested in marriage before she met Robert. Suddenly, she was the perfect wife and mother? I should have said something. We all should have, Frank added. The signs were there. The way she isolated Ruby. The sudden illnesses Robert kept having. The way she controlled every family gathering. Emma, who'd been quiet, suddenly said, "She made me write mean things in a card to Grandma once. Said if I didn't, Dad would be disappointed in me. I never sent it, though. I hid it." "You did?" I asked. Emma nodded and pulled a crumpled card from her backpack. "I carry it because I felt so guilty. I wanted to tell you, but Mom said you wouldn't understand because of your condition." I read the card. In Emma's handwriting, forced and shaky, were cruel words about not wanting to visit me anymore. But at the bottom, in tiny letters, Shed added, "I don't mean this, Grandma. I love you." "Oh, sweetheart," I said, pulling her close. "You were so brave," Tyler added. "She made us do a lot of things. Made us ignore your calls. Told us you were saying bad things about Dad. But I knew it wasn't true because you always sent us cookies on test days, even when we weren't talking to you." "The cookies arrived?" I asked, surprised. "Through Mr. Peters next door," Tyler admitted. "He would sneak them to us at school. Said they were from someone who loved us very much." I made a mental note to thank my wonderful neighbor. Harold returned with another item. A USB drive. The security footage from the past week. Everything Jessica did and said in public areas. "It's yours if you need it for court." "Well, need it," William confirmed. "This is going to be a complex case, but with this evidence, Jessica and Dorothy are looking at serious federal charges. The interstate nature of their crimes makes this FBI jurisdiction." "What about the divorce?" Robert asked quietly. "Given the fraud and the fact that the marriage was entered into under false pretenses, we can file for annulment," William explained. "It'll be as if the marriage never existed legally." 5 years of my life," Robert said bitterly. 5 years of lies. "Not everything was a lie," I said gently. "Emma and Tyler aren't lies. Your growth in the business isn't a lie. The strength you're showing right now isn't a lie." Patricia stood up. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm ashamed to be related to Jessica. If there's anything I can do to help, any testimony you need, I'm here." Others in the room echoed her sentiment. Even some of Jessica's cousins offered to testify about things they'd witnessed but hadn't understood at the time. As the evening wore on, the shock began to wear off, replaced by a strange sense of relief. The truth was out. The poison that had been slowly killing our family had been exposed and removed. "Mom," Robert said finally. "How did you know? How did you figure it all out?" "She made one mistake," I said. "She underestimated me. She thought because I was in my 60s, because I was alone, because I was grieving your father, that I was weak. But your father and I didn't build our life together by being weak. We built it by being smart, by protecting each other, by fighting for our family. Even after death, Dad's still protecting us," Robert said, looking at the trust fund documents. "He always knew," I said softly. "He used to say, 'Ruby, promise me if anything happens to me, you'll watch out for the vultures. Our success will attract them.' I promised him. Tonight, I kept that promise." 6 months had passed since that explosive New Year's Eve in Aspen. The 4th of July sun was bright over Burlington as I finished arranging the picnic tables in my backyard, the same yard where Id once sat alone, excluded from my own family, was now bustling with preparations for our first real family gathering since the truth came out. "Grandma Ruby, where do you want the fireworks?" Tyler called out, hauling a box across the lawn. "Away from the grill, sweetheart," I called back, smiling at how much had grown in these 6 months. The anxious, confused boy, who'd been poisoned against me, was gone, replaced by the confident 12-year-old Id, always known was there. Emma was in the kitchen with me now, having insisted on learning all my recipes. "I want to know everything Jessica claimed was hers," Shed said firmly. "I want to cook real family food. Today, she was making my famous apple pie, the one Jessica had passed off as her own creation for 5 years. "Grandma," Emma said, carefully crimping the pie crust. "I'm nervous about my speech. Tonight, Emma would be reading something Shed written for her 8th grade graduation about heroes Shed chosen to write about me. And while I was deeply touched, Id told her she didn't need to. "You've been through enough, sweetheart. You don't need to talk about it publicly." "But I want to," Emma insisted. "Other kids need to know that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones hurting you, and that there's always hope." Robert walked in then, looking healthier than he had in years. The months of therapy had helped enormously, both in recovering from the drugs Jessica had been giving him and in processing the emotional manipulation Head endured. "Mom, the news crew is here," he said. "Are you sure about this?" 3 weeks ago, a major network had contacted me about the documentary I'd been secretly filming during the last months of Jessica's deception. What had started as simple documentation for potential legal proceedings had become something more, a powerful exposé on elder abuse and family fraud. "I'm sure," I said. "If our story can help even one family avoid what we went through, it's worth it." The documentary, titled The Silent Target, When Family Becomes the Enemy, was set to air next month. The producers said it was one of the most compelling cases they'd ever covered, especially because we had so much footage and evidence. Jessica was currently serving 5 years in federal prison for fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, and conspiracy. The FBI had connected her to 3 other cases across state lines, making it a federal matter. Dorothy received 3 years, though at 72, it was essentially a life sentence. Marcus got 18 months and had to testify against them both. The divorce, or rather, annulment, had been finalized 3 months ago. Robert got full custody of the children, and Jessica was ordered to pay restitution, though there was little money left after her legal fees. "Ruby," Frank's voice boomed from the yard. He and Margaret had become fixtures in our lives again, the awkwardness of our past divorce long forgotten in the face of our shared commitment to protecting the family. "Frank, you made it," I called out. "Wouldn't miss it. I brought someone who wants to meet you." Behind Frank was a woman in her 70s, looking nervous but determined. I recognized her from photos Thomas had shown me. Patricia Williams, one of Dorothy and Jessica's previous victims. "Mrs. Henderson," Patricia said, tears in her eyes. "You saved my life. After your case made the news, my son realized what had happened to me. I'm out of that horrible facility and living with family again." I embraced her, feeling the weight of what we'd accomplished. The ripple effects of standing up to Jessica and Dorothy had spread far beyond our family. Harold Patterson arrived next, bearing a bottle of champagne and an envelope. "Ruby, this is for you." Inside was a photo of a plaque, "Ruby's Justice Suite," at the Mountain View Lodge, with a note that all proceeds from that room would go to the foundation I was establishing. The Silent Voices Foundation had been my therapist's idea. "You've found your voice again, Ruby," Shed said. "Help others find theirs." The foundation would provide legal assistance, private investigation services, and safe housing for elderly people experiencing family abuse. We'd already helped 12 families in 6 months. As the afternoon wore on, more people arrived. Thomas Mitchell, who'd become a close friend, Barbara and William, who'd saved Robert's business, even Margaret, the housekeeper from the resort, who'd risked her job to help us. When it was time for dinner, Robert stood to speak. 6 months ago, I nearly lost everything that mattered because I was too blind to see what was happening, too weak to protect my family. My mother saved us all. She fought when I couldn't, stood strong when I was falling, and never gave up on us even when we'd given up on her. He pulled out a document. Mom, Emma, and Tyler and I have been talking. We want to do something to honor you and Dad. He handed me the paper. It was a legal name change form. We're adding your maiden name, Brooks, to ours. From now on, we're the Morrison Brooks family. I couldn't speak through the tears. Emma stood next, holding her speech with trembling hands. My hero doesn't wear a cape or have superpowers. She's 68 years old, walks 3 miles every day, and makes the best apple pie in Vermont. But when someone tried to destroy our family, she became something more. She became unstoppable. She read her entire speech, about watching me fight for them, about learning that strength isn't about age or physical power, but about refusing to give up on the people you love. There wasn't a dry eye in the yard when she finished. Tyler presented me with something he'd made in art class. A handmade book titled The Strongest Woman I Know. Each page had a drawing and a memory. Me at his soccer games, teaching him to ride a bike. The cookies that arrived even when we weren't talking. As the sun set and the fireworks began, I sat surrounded by my family. My true family. Robert on one side, the kids on the other, Frank and Margaret nearby, and all the friends who'd become family through this ordeal. I thought about Jessica, sitting in her cell, and felt not hatred but pity. She'd had everything. A loving husband, wonderful children, a place in a warm family, and she'd thrown it all away for money she'd never get to spend. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Williams. Watching fireworks with my grandchildren for the first time in 3 years. Thank you for giving me my life back. The documentary producer had asked me what message I wanted to leave viewers with. Now, I knew. Family isn't about blood or marriage certificates, Id told the camera. It's about who shows up when you need them, who fights beside you, who refuses to let you face the darkness alone. And age? Age isn't weakness. Every year I've lived has taught me something, given me strength, shown me how to fight smarter, not harder. When Jessica told me there wasn't enough space for me, she thought she was pushing out a helpless old woman. What she actually did was awaken a warrior who'd been dormant, not dead. She reminded me that Id spent 30 years in law offices learning how to document everything, how to build cases, how to fight for justice. To anyone out there facing something similar, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not too old to fight back. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Find your allies. And remember, the people who try to isolate you are counting on your silence. Your voice is your weapon. Use it. As the grand finale of fireworks lit up the sky, Robert raised his glass of lemonade, finally free from the anxiety medications that had clouded his mind for so long. To Mom, he said, who taught us that family isn't just about blood. It's about choice. And who chose to fight for us when we couldn't fight for ourselves. To Ruby, everyone chorused. But I raised my own glass higher. To Daniel, I said, looking at the stars beginning to appear, who protected us even after he was gone, and to all of us, for choosing love over fear, truth over comfort, and family over everything else. Emma leaned against me. Grandma. Jessica screamed for 5 hours that night when she was arrested. The police told us. I know, sweetheart. Were you scared? I thought about it. No, Emma. Those screams weren't frightening. They were the sound of justice, the sound of truth winning, the sound of our family being set free. Tyler added. Dad says you're writing a book about everything that happened. I am. I confirmed, so that other families can learn from our story. What's it called? Tyler asked. I smiled. When there's not enough space. A story of taking back your place. Robert laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in years. Perfect, Mom. Absolutely perfect. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, each person stopped to hug me, to thank me, to share how our story had inspired them to look closer at their own families, to check on elderly relatives, to speak up when something felt wrong. Harold Patterson was one of the last to leave. Ruby, that suite at the resort has raised $50,000 for your foundation already. Apparently, everyone wants to stay in the room where justice was served. After everyone left, and the children were asleep, Robert and I sat on the porch, just as we had so many months ago when this all began. Mom, I need to say something, Robert began. I failed you. As your son, I should have protected you from Jessica, not the other way around. Robert, you were being drugged and manipulated by someone you loved. That's not failure. That's being human. But you saw through it. I had the advantage of distance and clarity. She couldn't drug me or manipulate me the same way because Shed already pushed me away. Sometimes being excluded is what saves you. Do you forgive me? His voice was small, reminding me of when he was a little boy, who'd broken something precious. There's nothing to forgive, son. We survived. We're together. That's all that matters. We sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies dance in the yard. The same yard where Id felt so alone 6 months ago was now filled with the echoes of laughter and love. Mom, Robert said finally, what made you decide to fight back? You could have just accepted it, moved on, built a life without us. I thought about his question carefully. Your father used to say that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. The day I saw those photos from Aspen, I had a choice. I could choose to accept the story Jessica was telling, that I wasn't wanted, wasn't needed, wasn't enough, or I could choose to fight for the truth, fight for my family, fight for the love I knew was real even if it was buried under lies. I chose love, Robert. I'll always choose love, even when it means war. He squeezed my hand. We're lucky to have you, Mom. No, I corrected. We're lucky to have each other. As I prepared for bed that night, I looked at the photo on my nightstand. Daniel and me, on our wedding day, young and hopeful, unaware of all the challenges we'd face, but also unaware of how strong we'd become, how our love would transcend even death to protect our family. We did it, Daniel, I whispered to the photo. We saved them all, and somewhere in the silence, I could swear I heard his voice. I knew you would, my love. I always knew. To everyone listening to this story, I want to ask you something important. Have you checked on your elderly parents or relatives lately? Really checked, not just a quick phone call? Have you noticed if someone in their life seems to be isolating them, making decisions for them, or keeping family members apart? Sometimes the signs of elder abuse are subtle, hidden behind smiles and explanations that seem reasonable on the surface. But if something feels wrong, trust that instinct. It could save someone you love. If this story resonated with you, please comment below with your own experiences or thoughts about protecting our elderly loved ones. Like this video if you believe these stories need to be told. Subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over adversity. And most importantly, share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know who might be sitting alone right now, thinking they're not enough, not wanted, not worth fighting for. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, you're never too old to fight back, never too alone to matter, and never too far gone to reclaim your place in your family. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your loved ones is showing them what real strength looks like. May you always have the courage to choose love, even when it means war. May your voice never be silenced by those who think you're too old to matter. And may you always remember that family isn't about who shares your blood, but who shares your battles. This is Ruby, reminding you that there's always enough space for those who truly belong. You just sometimes have to fight for it.